started as a gentle patter, a soft serenade on the leaves that surrounded the old cabin in the woods. It was a sound so soothing that it could almost lull one into a false sense of security. But as the night deepened, the rain transformed into a relentless downpour, each drop echoing like a heartbeat, drumming a rhythm that felt almost alive. The woods, once a refuge, now seemed to close in, the trees looming like silent sentinels, their branches outstretched as if to grasp at anyone who dared wander too close. In the heart of this oppressive atmosphere, 3 stories unfolded, each one weaving a thread of isolation, fear, and the uncanny. The first story belonged to a young woman named Clara, who had ventured into the woods for a weekend of solitude. She sought the quiet to escape the noise of her life, the constant buzz of her phone, the chatter of friends, and the expectations that weighed heavily on her shoulders. The cabin was rustic, charming in its simplicity, surrounded by towering pines and the sweet scent of damp earth. As she settled in, the rain began to fall, a soft curtain that blurred the world outside. Clara loved the sound of rain. It was a comfort, a reminder of home. She lit a fire in the fireplace and curled up with a book, the flickering light casting shadows that danced along the walls. Hours passed, and the rain intensified, a torrent that drowned out all other sounds. It was then that she heard it, a faint tapping, almost like a whisper against the wooden walls. At first, she dismissed it as the wind playing tricks, but as the tapping continued, a sense of unease crept into her heart. The sound was rhythmic, almost deliberate, and it seemed to come from the back of the cabin. Clara's curiosity piqued. She set her book aside and rose to investigate. Each step felt heavy, the floor creaking beneath her as she made her way towards the source of the noise. The rain pounded against the roof, drowning out everything but the tapping, which grew louder, more insistent. As she reached the back door, she hesitated. Should she open it? The thought of stepping into the storm sent a shiver down her spine. But the tapping was relentless, a call she could not ignore. With a deep breath, she turned the handle and pulled the door open. The rain hit her like a wall, cold and unyielding. She squinted into the darkness, but the only thing she could see was the silhouette of the trees, their branches twisting in the wind. Then she saw it, a figure barely discernible in the shadows, standing just beyond the reach of the cabin's light. It was hunched over, its head bowed as if in contemplation. Clara's heart raced as she called out, but her voice was swallowed by the storm. The figure straightened, slowly turning to face her, and in that moment, she felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. Its eyes glinted in the darkness, 2 pinpricks of light that bore into her soul. Panic surged through her and she slammed the door shut, locking it with trembling hands. She backed away, her breath coming in quick gasps as she pressed against the wall trying to calm her racing heart. The tapping resumed, now on the window beside her, a soft, persistent sound that felt like a plea. Clara wanted to scream, to run, but she was frozen in place, every instinct screaming at her to stay hidden, to remain quiet. Hours passed, or maybe it was mere minutes. Time had lost all meaning. The rain continued to pour, but the tapping had stopped. Clara sat huddled in the corner, the fire dying down to embers, casting eerie shadows that flickered like ghosts. Just when she thought she might be safe, she heard it again, a soft whisper, barely audible over the rain, but unmistakable. It called her name, a chilling echo that filled the room. Clara. She felt the weight of dread settle over her like a heavy cloak. The voice was familiar yet distorted, as if it came from a place beyond the veil of reality. It was then that she understood the truth. She was not alone in the woods. Something had been watching her, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. As she pressed her back against the wall, she could feel the presence drawing closer, the air thick with an unspoken promise of terror. The second story unfolded in a different corner of the woods, where a group of friends had gathered for a camping trip. They were a lively bunch, full of laughter and bravado, eager to escape the mundanity of their lives. As the sun set, they built a fire, its warmth flickering against the encroaching darkness. The rain began to fall, a light drizzle that soon morphed into a steady downpour. They huddled closer together, sharing ghost stories, their voices rising above the sound of the rain. But as the night wore on, the atmosphere shifted. The woods, once alive with the sounds of crickets and rustling leaves, grew silent, as if the very forest held its breath. It was then that Sarah, one of the friends, suggested a game of truth or dare. The others cheered, eager for a distraction from the oppressive silence that surrounded them. As they played, the dares grew bolder, more reckless. Finally, someone dared Tom to venture into the woods alone, to walk 100 paces away from the fire, and return. The group laughed, egging him on, and with a roll of his eyes, Tom accepted the challenge. He stepped into the rain, the drops hitting his face like icy needles. The sound of the fire crackled behind him, a comforting reminder of safety. He counted slowly, each number echoing in the stillness of the wood. One step after another, he ventured deeper, the darkness swallowing him whole. The rain drummed on the leaves above, a haunting symphony that seemed to mock his bravado. When he reached 100, he turned to head back, but something stopped him. A rustle in the underbrush, a sound that sent a jolt of fear through him. "Guys," he called out, but his voice was swallowed by the rain. The laughter from the campfire felt like a distant memory, and the shadows around him seemed to stretch and twist. He took a step back, but the ground beneath him shifted and he stumbled, falling to his knees in the mud. As he looked up, he saw it, a figure standing just beyond the trees, its outline obscured by the rain. Tom's heart raced as he scrambled to his feet, adrenaline flooding his veins. He turned to run, but the figure moved with him, always just out of reach, its presence a chilling reminder of his vulnerability. He sprinted back towards the fire, the sound of the rain pounding against the ground echoing in his ears. The laughter of his friends grew louder, a beacon of hope in the darkness. He burst into the circle of light, gasping for breath. "Did you see that?" he shouted, but the others looked at him with confusion. "See what?" they asked, their faces a mixture of concern and amusement. Tom's heart sank as he realized he was alone in his fear. The figure had vanished, swallowed by the shadows, and the rain continued to fall, a relentless reminder of the isolation that surrounded him. The night wore on, and the group gradually settled back into their merriment. But Tom couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beyond the firelight. The woods felt alive, the rain a constant reminder of the unseen dangers that lay hidden in the dark. As the laughter faded and the fire dwindled, he found himself unable to sleep, his mind racing with thoughts of what he had seen. It was then that he heard it, a soft whisper carried on the wind, a voice that sent chills down his spine. Tom. It was a name he recognized, but the tone was wrong, twisted and daunting. He sat up, heart pounding, and scanned the darkness beyond the firelight. The rain fell heavier now, each drop a reminder of the isolation that enveloped him. The third story began with a man named David, who was a seasoned hiker, accustomed to the solitude of the wilderness. He had ventured into the woods for a week-long retreat, seeking solace among the towering trees and the sound of rain against the earth. The first few days were blissful, a respite from the chaos of his life. But on the fourth day, the rain began to fall, a steady downpour that transformed the landscape into a murky labyrinth. David found himself lost, the trails he had once known now obscured by the relentless rain. The trees loomed overhead, their branches heavy with water, and the sound of the rain became a cacophony that disoriented him. He tried to retrace his steps, but every turn felt wrong, every path leading him deeper into the woods. The sun had long since set, and darkness enveloped him like a shroud. As he wandered, he felt an unsettling presence, a sense that he was being watched. The rustling of leaves seemed to follow him, the shadows shifting in a way that felt almost sentient. David quickened his pace, the sound of his heartbeat pounding in his ears. It was then that he stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin, its windows shattered and the door hanging off its hinges. He hesitated at the threshold, but the rain drove him inside. The air was thick with mildew, and the floorboards creaked ominously beneath him. As he explored the dark corners of the cabin, he found remnants of a life once he lived. Faded photographs, broken furniture, and a fireplace choked with ash. But it was the basement door that caught his attention, slightly ajar, as if inviting him in. Against his better judgment, David descended the creaking stairs, the sound of the rain fading to a distant murmur above. The basement was cold and damp, the air heavy with an unsettling stillness. As he reached the bottom, he saw it, a figure huddled in the corner, shrouded in darkness. It was a woman, her hair matted and her clothes tattered, her eyes wide with fear. "Help me," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain. David's heart raced as he stepped closer, but as he did, the woman's expression shifted. Her eyes darkened, and a chilling smile spread across her face. "You shouldn't have come here," she said, her voice now a low hiss that sent shivers down his spine. David turned to flee, but the basement door slammed shut, trapping him in darkness. Panic surged through him as he banged on the door, shouting for help, but the rain drowned out his cries. The woman's laughter echoed in the confined space, a haunting sound that reverberated off the walls. He felt her presence closing in, a weight that pressed against him, suffocating him in the darkness. Just when he thought he might be lost forever, the door creaked open, and the rain poured in, washing over him like a cleansing tide. He stumbled out into the night, gasping for breath, but the woods felt different now. The trees whispered secrets, the shadows danced with malevolence, and he could feel the weight of unseen eyes upon him. As he ran, the rain fell harder, each drop a reminder of the terror he had escaped. He could hear the woman's laughter fading into the distance, but her words echoed in his mind. "You shouldn't have come here." The woods had a way of consuming those who dared to trespass, and as the rain continued to fall, David knew he would never truly be free. The night wore on, and the stories lingered in the air, entwined with the sound of the rain. Each tale spoke of isolation, of the haunting presence that dwelled in the woods, waiting for those who sought solace in the shadows. The rain continued to fall, a relentless reminder of the darkness that surrounded them, and the woods whispered secrets that would never be forgotten.